Hello friends, I am Professor Pranitha H. Mokal and today we will see the example of K-means algorithm. In previous lecture we have already seen what is meant by the K-means algorithm and what are the steps to performing K-means algorithm for cluster formation. K-means algorithm is used in clustering. It is unsupervised learning algorithm which groups the unlabeled datasets into different clusters. That means we are forming the clusters from different data items which are not labeled. In this we are having only two steps or two important phases. First is finding centroid and second is assigning data points to the centroid to form the cluster. These are the two key points of the K-means algorithm. So we will see the example directly. Example is use the above data and group them using K-means clustering algorithm and also show the calculations of centroid. These are the data set given in the problem. This is the first to 12 number of data sets and divided it into the height and weight. We have to first decide the centroid and then form the clusters according to the centroid. So first is we should select the initial centroid. For that we are selecting centroid 1 as a first record, that is 185 and 72. Centroid 2 as a second record, that is 170 and 56. So cluster 1 will be first record and cluster 2 will be the second record. This is the very first step, that is selecting the initial centroid, and we have selected centroid C1 and C2 as record 1 and record 2 respectively. In next phase we will use the Euclidean distance formula for calculating the Euclidean distance using every centroid for every row. So Euclidean distance formula is xh under root of xh minus h1 square plus xw minus w1 square, where xh is nothing but the observation value of variable height and h1 is nothing but the centroid value of cluster 1 for variable height. That means whatever the cluster we have selected, the variable height is from that centroid value, that is centroid 1 or 2. xw is nothing but the observation value of variable weight and w1 is nothing but the centroid value of cluster 1 for variable weight. So for row 3, which is given into the data sets, this is nothing but the row 3, that is 168 and 60. We have to see whether this row 3, records of row 3 will be in centroid 1, cluster 1 or cluster 2. So using centroid 1 we will calculate the values. We are calculating the values using the Euclidean distance for row 3. First of all we are using the cluster 1, that is 185 comma 72 for row 3, that is 168 and 60. Using the same formula for Euclidean distance, it is xh under root of xh minus h1 square plus xw minus w1 square. So Euclidean distance will be as xh is nothing but the observation value of variable height, xh will be the 168 because this is the observation value, and h1 is nothing but the centroid value. H1 is nothing but the height value from centroid. Okay, so h1 will be the 185. So this is 168 minus 185 square plus xw is nothing but the observation value, this is nothing but the 60, and w1 is nothing but the centroid weight value, this is 72 square. So by calculating it will be the 17 square plus 12 square. So it will be the 289 plus 144 under root. Next will be the under root 1 under root 433. So finding out the under root of 433, it will be the 20.80. So by using the centroid value C1 for row 3, we will get the equivalent distance as 20.80. So we will calculate again for row 3 using centroid value 2, that is C2 172, 56. Again we are using the same formula of included distance and putting the values in it. It will be 168, this is the value of observation value, minus 172, that is the centroid 2 value. Then XW, this is nothing but 60, this is the observation value, and 56 is nothing but the centroid 2's weight value. By performing the calculation, it will be the 2 square plus 4 square. Then performing the again calculation, it will be the under root of 20, and by calculating the value of under root of 20, it will be the 4.48. So 4.48 is nothing but the value we are calculating for row 3 using the centroid value 2, that is C2. Now what we will do, we will comparing both the values of centroid. That means we are comparing the values which we are getting by using the C1, that is centroid 1, and by using the C2. That means these are the equivalent distance, that is 22.80 for cluster 1 or centroid, and 4.48 for centroid 2. So we are comparing this. By comparing, we will get 4.48. The value of centroid 2 is less than 22.40, the value by centroid 2. So it will be the C2 is less than C1. So by using the equivalent distance, we are using those centroid points which are nearer or which are closer or which are smaller. So C2 is less than C1, so that we are considering the centroid C2. So it will be the 4.48. Therefore cluster 1 will be the 1 itself, because we are not selecting the cluster 1, and cluster 2 will be the 2, 3. We are adding the row 3 or item set of 3 into the cluster 2, because we have selected for the cluster 2. This will be the updation of cluster 1. In cluster 1 we are having the 1 record, and cluster 2 we are having the second and third row. Similarly we are going for the row 3, and before that we are updating the centroid 2, because we are selecting the centroid 2 for row 3. We are updating the centroid 2 according to the row 3. So previous C2 centroid was 170, 56, and row 3 is 168, 60. We are calculating the mean for these two to calculate the new centroid. So we are updated by 170, that is the height of centroid, plus row 3 170 plus 168 by divided by 2, and 56 plus 60 divided by 2. By performing the calculation, we will get 338 divided by 2, 116 divided by 2. New C2 value, so new C2 value will be 169, 58. This is the updated centroid value for centroid 2. So centroid 1 will be the same, because we have not selected the centroid 1, it will be the 185, 72, and new centroid 2 will be 169, 58. Again we are performing the same operation for row 4 also. So for row 4 we are using this C1 as a 185, 72, same updated C2, that is centroid 2 we have updated in the previous step, that is 169, 58, and we are considering now row 4, because we have already considered the row 3 in previous iteration. So we are considering row 4, that is 179, 68. So Again we are performing the same operation. First of all we are calculating the Euclidean distance but using centroid C1, that is 185 comma 72. Taking the same equation, then 179 minus 185, that because we are using the centroid 1, and 68 minus the 72 because we are using the centroid 1 again. So by performing the calculation, it will be the 6 square plus 4 square, then 36 plus 16, it will be the under root of 52. Then we will find out the under root of 52, it will be the 7.2. Now the Euclidean distance for row 4 using the centroid value C1, we will get it as a 7.2. Again we are calculating the Euclidean distance for row 4 using our second centroid, that is C2 169 comma 58. Using same Euclidean distance formula, putting the values in it, we will get the value of under root of 200, and we are calculating the under root of 200, it will be the 14.14. This is nothing but the value which we are calculated for row 4 using the centroid C2. So for the next we will see, we are comparing the both the centroids. Using centroid 1 we will get the value of 7.2, and using the centroid 2 we will get the value of 14.14, and by comparison we will come to know value by centroid C1 will be less than C2, so that whichever the value will be the less, we will select or we will select the smallest value, that is the C2. So that is the C1, that is 7 is equal to 7.2. So we are updating the cluster. As we are selected the C1 cluster for row 4, we are updating the cluster. Cluster 1 will be now 1 comma 4 because we are selected the centroid C1 for our row 4. So it will be the 1 4, and for cluster 2 it will be the as it is because we have not selected the cluster 2. So updating the centroid C1, because we have selected the centroid C1 and we are using the value of row 4 also for updating the centroid C1, we are finding the mean of it. So it will be updated by 185 plus 179 and 72 plus 68 by 2. So C1 value will be, new C1 value will be 182 comma 70. So our new centroid value will be 182 comma 70, and C2 will be the as it is because we have not updated the centroid value, or we have not updated the centroid C2. So this will be the next iteration. So according to this, we are performing the same iterations for every row, that is row 5 to row 12, and updating the cluster as cluster 1 1 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 and 12, and cluster 2 will be the 2 comma 3. These clusters are updated by using the same iterations which we have seen for row 3 and row 4. If you want the detailed explanation of all the steps, I will share the link to you for the detailed example solving. So thank you.